I I can't believe we joked around about my roof leaking on episode 1, and here we are at the
Yeah.
end of it all.
Eh, Well,
My roof
yeah,
is
right.
actually leaking.
Yeah, I know nothing about this.
I
I know
know
nothing about
insurance will
roofs.
cover roofs, but I don't know what the deductible for a home insurance claim is. I've never had to make one. So, I'm
Uh,
going to be
w-
learning a lot of new things tomorrow.
yeah. Well, whatever it is, I guarantee you that it's horrible.
Stupid. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
You're
Yep.
going to be, your first reaction is going to be, well, that can't be right.
Hello and welcome to Flanagan's Wake, a Doof Media podcast exploring and analyzing the works of Mike Flanagan. My name is Scott Daly, and stuck for eternity in the Red Room with me is my good friend, Matt Freeman. How's it going today, Matt? Another day, huh?
Another day. It's going great, as always. I'm really happy that we died together while podcasting when that bolt of lightning hit the internet cables that connected our house together, because that's how that works, and it killed both of us mid podcast. And now this is just our existence, and we were in a good mood. So while this may seem like sort of macabre and dark and bad, it's actually great. Trust me.
I love, like, immediately I was like, oh, he's going happy with it. Okay, cool. I have a dumb question for you that my wife's going to kill me for asking you, but she brought this up. So it's storming here in Dallas tonight, and my wife said, oh, it was almost bath time for my kids, and my wife said, we better get them in the bath before it storms because it's not safe to be in the bath when it's lightning outside. And I thought in my head, I was like, that can't be true. Are you aware? This is what triggered this in my mind, is you talking about the internet being electrocuted and somehow that would electrocute both of us. That's not true, right?
I don't know. So the fact is, I was always told that by my mother, and thus I carried forward this fear. But if you ask me, like, do I have any evidence that anyone in history has ever been killed by lightning strike during them being in the bathtub? I have no idea. I mean, maybe.
Well, Google AI
Uh-huh.
says, no, it is not safe to be in the bathroom during a thunderstorm, especially to use the plumbing, due to the risk of lightning striking your home and traveling through the plumbing system.
So
Lightning can enter a structure and travel through various systems, including plumbing, electrical, and phone lines. Okay. So
I think my quibble here is over the use of the word safe, because I'm
Sure.
like, it's probably more dangerous, relatively speaking. I mean, I've heard that lightning just go in a window and kill you if you're just sitting next to the window. So you're just going to stay away from the windows. This is a tangent, but yeah.
Is it though? Because houses, not safe, right?
Not safe,
So
not sane,
that's
not safe.
that's not a tangent at all.
Mhm.
I don't know if electricity is going to go through the water into like your shower and electrocute you.
I also thought that water had to have some amount of salt in it to be conductive, but again, not gonna make a thing.
Well, the good thing about this is we're doing this on the podcast listened to by thousands of people. So I'm sure one of you out there
Yeah,
can tell us, have the actual science behind this whole thing.
yeah. Just one of you, though.
Yeah, please. You all get together and decide collectively who's going to represent you. Anyway, sorry for that very early tangent in the show. But this week on Flanagan's Wake, we are taking one final look at Mike Flanagan's The Haunting of Hill House. This is our overview episode. This is where we take a step back. We were so far into the weeds that we want to take a step back and look at the show as a whole before we say goodbye and move on to something else. So, Matt, it has been 1 week exactly since you and I sat down to record our thoughts on Silence Lay Steadily, the final episode of The Haunting of Hill House. I'm wondering how you're doing, how you're feeling a week later. The show has sat with you a little bit longer. It's marinated a little bit. What is on the top of your mind right now?
Well, on top of my mind, I don't know. Marinate is a good word because it had time to, I think, mature in my mind. The ideas we were going for, the message we were going for, it's the kind of thing that you only really know once the show is over. And so that allowed me to be able to reflect back on all the individual episodes and think about those in context of this overall story that we're telling. Because
Hmm.
one thing you could say, just for example, is you can look at Luke's story and you can say you could really be telling two very different stories with Luke, where one of them ends with him celebrating his 2 years of sobriety, and one of them ends with him dead, with a heroin needle in his arm, and those would have very different feeling endings, and they would have different implications to what we were saying.
Yeah.
So, yeah, just I think everything has just kind of settled, and I feel more confident. I think than I was last week in being able to talk about like each of the individual characters and what we're doing with them and some of the major themes actually that only really jumped out to me after stepping away from it.
Hmm.
So looking forward to hit some of those beats with you this week that we didn't necessarily touch on last week.
Yeah, sure. I'm ready. I'm excited. Can I admit to you what I did? Can
Would
I?
you?
You're gonna be mad at me.
Of course I will. Go on.
I watched the whole fucking show over again
Was-
last week. I watched every single episode over again.
I basically assumed that you had, Scott.
Okay, good. I'm
This is
glad.
the way you are.
Yeah, that is very true. Love the show. Love it so much. Even on this, just after diving into it, we have spent 22 hours conservatively talking about this show over the last 10 weeks. But I couldn't get enough. I had to go back. Yeah, I liked it. I think it was a good experience for me ultimately because one of the problems we have and one of the reasons why we do these overviews is like you spend so long on something that you forget not only do you forget the things you said in the first couple episodes of our podcast, but you just kind of forget like Steve sees a ghost was 2.5 months ago for
Yeah.
you and
Yeah.
me. um so much has happened since then, both within the world of the show and with the world itself, that revisiting that was really good. Like the thing, I don't know where you want to start here, but like I feel like where I want to start is Steve Crane, because that's the one thing that really stuck out to me most on this rewatch was, just this is the guy we started everything with. The show starts with him and the show ends with him. And so like, yes, all the other characters are important. They have their own arc and they're well defined and well drawn and all that, but like if we had to say in this ensemble there was a protagonist, I think it ultimately is Steve.
We started and end with him, and also I think that a lot of our major themes are most thoroughly explored with him.
Yeah.
Now, I'm sure someone could argue with me on that point, but one thing that I was noticing as I stood back from this is we sort of got the two biggest themes to my mind, and I'm all ears if you have some other candidates, but basically they would be the idea of death and the idea of uh, marriage and relationships.
Hmm.
And Steve is Steve is other than Hugh and Liv, Steve is sort of the most prominent um, figure where we have a highly strained marriage. It's also going on with Shirley, right? So, basically all of these things are weaving in with all of the characters. That's what makes them themes. But
Yeah.
I feel like Steve is sort of this central example of these things, and I think that's why we started in with him. I think that's
Yeah, I mean, I think Shirley's marriage is certainly strained, but it's kind of in perfect Shirley fashion, a strained marriage with a perfect marriage veneer covering it. That
mhm.
you could probably ask Kevin, "Is your marriage with your wife strained?" And he would be like, "No, we're good," because Shirley does a very good job at making everything look fixed. Whereas, yeah, when we meet Steve, he is separated from his wife. That marriage is over essentially, if not entirely. Um, and so I think you're just right there that
Mhm.
these all important core ideas of relationship, both marriage and love relationships, and also I think family relationships.
Yeah,
Steve is estranged from all his siblings. He is separated from his wife. He is in basically a no contact situation with his father, and he is um, doing work that is unfulfilling and disappointing to him, right? And this is where we meet this guy.
Yeah.
and and so his journey through the show and his journey through realizing that he was, as we joked around last week, wrong about everything,
Right.
is what allows him to repair all of that stuff.
Yes, I think him being wrong about everything is also one of the things that makes him central, is he kinda has the most to learn. Like,
Yeah.
every other character, especially the younger ones, they know something happened, although I think because they're so young, they're less, they're a little bit muddy on what exactly, but Steve has just very firmly decided that he knows what happened, and it was just his mom was mentally ill,
Yeah.
and his dad is an awful dad, and him being, like, the most wrong out of everyone is what allows him to have the most growth, I think.
Yeah. I think Nell aside, everyone of the Crane children is pretty anti-Hugh.
Mhm.
But I think that the avatar of that is definitely Steve for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, we don't see this, but I think there might be an implication that he kind of led the charge on that, as he was the oldest kid, and they still live together for the rest of their childhoods.
Yeah.
They just didn't
Mhm.
live with him. So
I don't even know if they, so that is an interesting thing that we didn't focus on, that I specifically reminded myself up on this latest rewatch I did. In the Two Storms episode, they're talking about the summer um that they went and lived with their aunt,
mm,
and someone offhandedly mentioned something about how like Steve leaves after that summer. It was like, you were only there for that summer or something. And like nothing is ever really explored in that area again, but it makes me wonder if like they did all really truly grow up in the same house. Like what was that? What was that? Did
mm.
Steve go off to like boarding school or something? Like I said, not explored, no information about that, but just kind of a throwaway thing there that made me very curious. It
Yeah.
could help explain Steve's estrangement from his siblings. That not only is he estranged by the choices he made with the book and everything else, but he was just like physically separated from them much earlier than the rest of them were physically separated from each other.
Yeah, it's possible. I missed that, if so, because I just had the assumption that they all kind of, maybe got out of the house as fast as they could, but lived together up until that point.
Hmm.
But I don't know. That's interesting.
Yeah.
I think that makes sense based on how bad their relationships are, because you can kind of imagine two ways this could have gone, right? Like, it could have been like, oh, they're just this incredibly tight knit crew because they were, quote unquote, abandoned by their mother and father, and they only had each other, and so they were thick as thieves together. And it's like, no, not at all. None of them really have a good relationship with each other. You've just sort of got, um, Nell, who everybody sort of loves as the baby sister, but they also sort of don't pay much attention to her. And then you've got,
Hmm.
them tolerating Luke, and you've got, small small but important areas like Theo choosing to live with Shirley because she loves Shirley so much and knows that Shirley needs her, and Shirley not appreciating this at all because she's awful. Um,
Man, you really hate her.
okay, so you just rewatched the whole show. Like, we watched it spread out over a period of time.
Hmm.
Or I did, I should say. So, like, I'm definitely left with this feeling of like the show just does not spend time putting you on Shirley's side in the way that it spends time putting you on the other kid's side. That was my feeling walking away from it.
Yes. Shirley's pathology, I think, is the least sympathetic of all of the kids, for
Mhm.
sure. I think Steve is a close second, but still, yeah. I mean, I think it's really interesting because you know we have. I think she's probably the one that, frankly, gets the least amount of development and time. I mean, it's not that it's not there. I don't want to say that, but like, it is really interesting that you know we we hit her in the second episode. We dive into her and we learn where her feelings about death came from, where her desire to cover it up and put a pretty face on it, and yada, yada, yada. And then we kind of sort of just leave Shirley behind for essentially the rest of the show. I mean, like, there is the little bits and pieces of her adamant that they're not going to take the money, that it's blood money, and her kind of world crashing down when she learns that she was wrong about that. I think the reason, if I tried to search for a reason for this, it was kind of the decision to hold Shirley's big secret until like the final moments of the show, which is, the man she met and slept with. Um, that kind of holds her at a distance from us for a long, long time. And so, like, I just, frankly, after the watch I did with you and then this rewatch, I just felt closer to every single one of the other characters. Even Steve, who does like unquestionably the most despicable thing anyone in the show does, like
Mm.
lying to his wife about his vasectomy, is just objectively monstrous. Um, but we're so in tune with who he is and why he made that decision and all these things. Whereas Shirley just like almost kind of by design is just kind of an abrasive personality.
Hmm.
And so even when you like understand the core of that, it's still like, okay, I get why you're annoying. However, I don't want to like hang out with you.
Yeah. Right. Still don't want to have a beer with you. Yeah.
Yeah.
There's so this is actually one of the big things I wanted to talk about is how you stand back from the magic eye picture and things kind of click into place, and it's just, and
Mhm.
this is almost too obvious to say, but it's basically just that the Crane children generally have very similar. You just use the word pathologies. You could just say like personality issues
Mhm.
where they're all very like distant. I use the word contained many, many times during our discussions. Sort of closed off people, and it's funny. I was thinking about the fact that I was overusing the word contained to describe a personality type, and I was like, yeah, it's probably because I used it to describe, you know, Steve and Shirley and Theo,
Mhm.
um, and possibly Hugh. Like really the only characters you have that are not like overtly white knuckling it and just like totally never just playing poker at all times would be Liv, who is a very warm person, and I think Luke and Nell are they're trying to reach out to other people, and the other and other people aren't reaching back. So they don't have the same problem, but it's like they
Mhm.
have their problem is actually a consequence of everyone else's problem. There were these two kids who needed warmth, and their mom, who was kind of the only warmth, was taken away, and now you've just got these siblings and dad in a different sense who are just kind of unable or unwilling to extend in any sort of that they don't have anything to spare, right? It's hard to
Mhm.
be too hard on them because of this horrible stuff that happened to them. But the consequence of the horrible stuff that happened to them is that none of them trust anybody else. Like this whole idea of fixing it, they all kind of have a streak of that. It's most overtly a Hugh thing and a Shirley thing, but they all have this sense of like, I don't trust anybody else. I'm not gonna, Theo never tells any about her sexuality because it's none of their business. Steve, like they're all basically they're all basically cut from the same cloth, even though it's kind of different instantiations of it.
Yeah.
And that became really that kind of popped out more with a little bit of distance from the show.
I think that's a great point. I mean, I think Steve, most textually like echoes the "Let me fix this" line that Hugh says at the end of the episode,
Hmm.
talking about his marriage. And I think we touched on this last week, but I just want to hit the beat again of the idea that like this desire and need and want to fix things is like not in and of itself an inherently bad idea, right? Like it's good to fix things generally. But the problem was that Shirley's idea of it and Hugh's idea of it too, to a certain extent, is like some things can't be fixed, and like you need to be able to recognize that and know what is fixable and what is not fixable. Your marriage with your wife, that might be fixable. um Hill House, no.
Yeah. Or
A death, like, no, you
no.
can't fix death, you can't. And that is, I think, you said at the very beginning that this is a show about death, and you're just right. This is a show about people dying and what what we do in the aftermath of that,
Mhm.
how we go on or how we don't. In some instances,
Yeah.
it's a show about grief. It's a show about mourning, and it's a show about the trauma and sadness that death inevitably creates. And yeah, like, so it's so obvious when you introduce the idea of fixing something into a show whose central theme is death, then you're immediately like, well, sorry, you can't
Yeah.
do that.
One way of looking at kind of the whole life of the Crane children was Hugh thinking, I've got to fix this. My wife has died. I've got to fix this. My wife has killed this child. I've got to fix this. And all of his choices were trying to fix this thing that can't be fixed, like you just said.
Yeah,
And thus, it was more like Shirley putting, the clay face on an embalmed corpse than it was like fixing anything. And all Hugh did was keep things in this sort of dead stasis for decades until things could be resolved, or things could be, moved on, which is not the same thing as fixing. A lot of illusions were shattered. A lot of tragic things had to happen to get to the point where all the Crane kids were back in that house together. One of them had to die to
yeah,
get to the point where they were all back in that house together. And that was, I think, I don't want to be like harsh on him, because I think he's a very like sympathetic character in so many ways, but I think it's all downstream of this attitude of, yeah, I've got to fix this thing, instead of just sort of. I think, by the way, I think what the show is offering to us, it's not just critiquing the idea of I've got to fix it. It's offering it to us the idea of, you don't have to be the one to take that on yourself.
mm,
You don't have to be the fully responsible for fixing everything, because what you have is, you have like a handful of characters who are all white knuckling their way through life thinking, I've got to fix this. Every one of them thinks they're the one who's responsible for the Crane family. Without without Theo moving in with Shirley, what would Shirley do? And it's like, what you really need to do is reach out open hearted and vulnerable to everyone, and make those connections, and reciprocate. Pick up the phone, for God's sake,
yeah,
when Nell is calling, because Nell is actually trying to do this. By the way, that's
yeah,
the most tragic thing, is Nell is trying to be the glue, but none of them are reciprocating.
yeah,
So that's literally why she dies. Like you can you can be pretty harsh on these people, really, if you want to, because they all had the opportunity to have this go a different way,
yeah.
and they all, I think, for reasons that are more or less like at least empathizable, they didn't make the right choices.
Yeah. No, I like that, and I think that ties really well into kind of Hugh's final words to Steve. His last bit of advice is take care of each other, and be kind to each other. If nothing else, be kind. This idea of taking care of each other, like that is what family is for, right? Is like, this is the dream of every parent that has multiple children, is that one day I will be gone, but I can go easy knowing that the children I leave behind will take care of each other. That if something bad happens to one of them, the other one will be there to help them, to support them, and they will carry on the concept of family. I created this family. Me and my wife got together. We created this family, and then we're going to go away one day, and they can carry that idea and that thought and the idea of home on. Um, and so I think that is, you're so right that these are people that are related, that are blood, but we're not acting as family in the way that family should.
I like how you phrased that, because it reminded me of this idea of the forever house, where it's like, after, the thread through the whole show is, after we flip this one, we're going to get our forever house, and then
Mm-hmm.
Hill House becomes this idea of the forever house, and Liv wants to sort of trap them in the forever house with her, so she can have them forever. And
Yeah,
then I think, the more mature attitude that I think Hugh is embodying is like, you are w- the for we built the forever house is the family.
yeah,
And Hugh is going to die now, but he's dying at peace because he knows that his kids are going to be okay and they're going to take care of each other. And that's the forever house. And there's not a delusion that the kids are going to live forever. The idea is you made something that goes beyond you rather than selfishly hoarding that thing to yourself, the way
Yeah.
Liv is. And just one note there, a thing that I really wished I had mentioned last episode, because it was something it's the one thing I wrote down, didn't mention, is um, maybe like the one kind of really dark note in the end of that episode, which is otherwise a very light, hopeful episode, is as the door to the red room is closing and Liv and Nell are hugging Hugh, you see the faces of Liv and Nell facing us, and Nell is just sobbing and weeping, and Liv is just staring death stare directly at Steve as that door closes. And it's creepy because you're like, oh, so she's not like fixed now.
No, yeah.
She still wants her children even
Yeah.
now. Which I think is I kind of like, because we can talk about the ending a bit more in a second, I guess. But like, I kind of like the idea that not everything is better, not everything is fixed. You couldn't fix Revenant Live.
Yeah, I mean, like that's we kind of hit this last week, but I think it's good to reinforce it. Is like the idea that it's good, I guess, that Liv and Hugh and Nell aren't alone in their afterlife. They get to be together. But yeah, the thing I really was thinking about was the idea of death as cessation of change, right?
Mhm.
Like that, like this is, I think, perfectly encapsulated with the concept of Abigail. I was thinking about Abigail a lot this week as well, of this person that the Dudleys were so desperately trying to keep safe, and ultimately she's safe, right? She's stuck in the house forever. She's never going to change. She's never going to grow up. But all the things that Hugh talked about that he got to experience with Nell, seeing her dance in her wedding, that beautiful poetic thing he said about that was a light that was sent up in the universe that was Nell, and we created that. I was part of that. That's something that our love came together and made this thing, and we get to see it up there and witness it and behold it. That's not Abigail ever. And so like this cessation of change, of growth, of experience that is death, like Liv does not change. Like he wins the argument with her ultimately only by giving his life for theirs, right?
Mhm.
It's not like she said, "Oh, really good point, husband. I love you. I'll let you and the kids go." No, it's like I make a bargain with you. I make a promise to you. Like you are alone, you are lonely and sad and want your children, take me instead and let them go. Um, and yeah, I think you're right. I think that look she gives them, she gives Steve at the very end is, I want you.
Mhm.
And yeah, I mean, like Steve walks out of the house. We didn't really talk about this, but he walks out of the house and all the ghosts of Hill House flank him
Mhm.
as he slowly walks out of the house. And like, it's like, it's almost like a bargain has been struck. We are not going to bother you, but don't come back
Yeah.
or we'll get you.
Yeah. Yeah, and he's basically the caretaker now, right? He's taking on the role that Hugh had before. I don't know if we talked about that. That he is now the owner and custodian. Essentially, he's responsible for Hill
Mhm.
House, which is ironic, right? Because he was the one who always hated Hill House and thought it was ridiculous and a lie, and
Yeah.
kind of just from top to bottom resents everything about it. Um,
Do you think you should burn it?
yes.
I mean, I go back to this idea of, and by the way, I did something I forgot to mention is I did also watch the rest of Mike Flanagan's um, commentary on episode 10, so I do have a little bit of his perspective on the end of the series to bring to this episode. But one of the things he talked about was that line from Horace Dudley of there are so many precious things in this place and they don't all belong to you. um his, like, the way he talked about that line was, this is just like a factual statement of truth, is that this idea that I think he related it to their time with Hill House, their time with the project as a writing team and a production team, of like, there's so many precious things in this place that we created, that we were part of, that we don't want to just destroy now. Um, and I like that. However, I also see in Horace Dudley's line here a bit of like, that doesn't justify what you're doing, man. I think we haven't come right out and said this, but like, if if Hugh had burned the house down and walked out the door, Nell would not have died, right?
Mhm.
I mean, maybe she was very depressed, and maybe we're talking, like, we're getting too into the weeds of the literal events that happened, and we should focus more on the metaphorical of what happened. But yeah, like, the house is dangerous. We kept the dangerous thing alive for the sake of um the ghosts and spirits that reside within it.
Yeah.
Maybe it's ultimately better to not do that.
I definitely have my biases here, and I basically agree with you. I mean, I've been thinking about this a lot in a sort of tongue in cheek way, but I'll just say it out loud. So, one of my first experiences in literary criticism of any kind was in high school when we read Death of the Salesman. Sorry,
Okay.
Death of a Salesman.
Yes,
Did you read that play in high
I did.
school?
Yeah.
And what I remember is like the thesis, we were sort of being taught how to like extract a theme or a thesis from the work. And the thesis was like stagnation leads to death. Stagnation leads to death. I remember this was the thing that was hammered in over and over. And I've been thinking about that while we've been talking about this show, because the idea of death being related to stasis, and maybe even stasis leading to death, in the sense that if you are unable to move on, if you are unable to grow, then Hill House will get you.
Yeah.
Um, I think that is there too. So, that being said, I think we're meant to empathize with the Dudleys, but I don't think we're
Yes.
meant to think like that was smart to do that, and that's a good thing to have done. No, I think actually what you're supposed to do, the healthy thing to do when a child dies, as horrible of a sentence as that is not to, you know, um, perpetually freeze yourself in the moment of their death with them. Pretty
Yeah.
much any other course of action is better than that, because that's what they tried to do. I think, yeah, like a more. I think we kind of played around with the idea last week of like what, you know, is this something that you would try to do? Probably yes. Is this something you should do? Probably not, because it's
Hmm.
not like you get to hang out with your kid. You get to hang out with this like photocopy of them taken on this one day that never changes.
Yeah.
While you grow older and you change, and it really becomes a very dark thing, actually.
Yeah. This
Um,
is a great parallel to Before I Wake, right? Where they lost their child, and then they were brought this other child who has a gift to summon this version of the child they lost, but that's not, it's not a real version of that kid, right? It's a
mhm,
approximation of a version of that kid that will never change, will never age, will never grow. Like, you've said this to me before, you said this to me before I even had kids, but like, one of the greatest joys of being a parent is watching your kid like learn things and like
mhm,
figure stuff out and like just change. And it's remarkable. Like, my son is 4 years old, and like, it feels like he is changing constantly and constantly learning new things, and he's so curious, and he just constantly asks questions about everything. Why is this happening? Why is that happening? And like, you can see his brain like figure it out and like draw conclusions. And the other day, he's at his friend's house. They're doing like swimming lessons right now, and he asked the mom, like, "You have two dogs, but you only have one dog crate. Why is that?" And it's like, this is like, that's, he's like pondering things and like realizing, and it's just like, it's incredible.
mhm.
And the idea that, oh, I get to keep my kid, but I don't get to experience any of that ever. I mean, that's not life.
Yeah, exactly. It's literally not life. I think that's what the show is doing. Is it's not. Um, you think that you're going to be happy if you can stay with this version of your kid right now? I mean, I think we basically had a similar conversation before where it's like, "Oh, my kids are growing up too fast. I wish I could just freeze them just like this and keep them just like this," right? Such a common sentiment for a parent to say or to think, right? Like, "Oh, growing up too fast." Um, but that doesn't mean you're not serious. Like you don't
Yeah.
actually want them to stop growing and have them be in that spot forever. Like
Hmm.
as much as you're enjoying having your son be 4 years old, you don't want him to be 4 years old forever. Um, I mean, maybe a small part of you does, right? Like
Yeah.
I don't think there's anything evil in like feeling that feeling, but I think just the recognition of like, no, it's the process that is life. The process of life is change, which is the opposite of stagnation.
Yeah. But again, I think it's so understandable that they make that choice, right? And I think one thing, rewatching the show, going back to the first episode and the ghost story that the woman tells Steve at the very, very beginning of the show, and when he explains what it is that she saw, her pushback on him is why would I want to see him like that? And his response is like, because it's better than never seeing him at all ever again.
But in my experience, most times they're just what we want to see.
Why would I want to see my Carl like that?
Because it's better than never seeing him again. Most times a ghost is a wish.
And that is essentially the choice the Dudleys make, right? It's like, why would I want to see that version of my daughter? Because the other option is never seeing my daughter again.
Mhm.
And yes, obviously that is ultimately like the quote unquote correct choice of like, you should not allow yourself to do that. But it ties into the idea of a ghost as a wish, is like, I wish my daughter was still here. I wish my mom was still here. I wish my sister was still here. These are the things that I wish for. I wish I could have said one more word to her. I wish I could have told her I'm sorry. I wish I could have told my son I loved him and I'm proud of him. Like this is the encapsulation of a ghost is a wish concept.
I love that. I also like this is why I think it's good that we do these show ender discussions, because I can make just connections that span across multiple episodes. And what I'm going to say is, you just kind of teed it up for me that why would I want to see my loved one in this horrible state? Because you'll never see them again. Otherwise applies
Hmm.
perfectly to the idea of an open casket funeral. We had
Yeah.
this long conversation, several conversations about, oh my, open casket funerals are kind of weird. I don't really understand it. I don't really like it. And it's like, well, would you rather never see them again
Hmm.
at all? And I have never been in a position where my answer was relevant, because I've never been to an open casket funeral where it was really like someone who I was responsible for. But I can imagine that this is weird to say after all of that dumping on open casket funerals that we've done. But like putting it that way, it's like, oh, so you would rather never see them again.
Yeah.
And then the other
Yeah.
part of me is like, well, it's not really them. It's a reproduction. I feel like there's a good chance that I would be like, I don't care. I'm not saying I'm pro open casket funerals all of a sudden, but very abruptly I can empathize much more strongly with that feeling after kind of seeing it this way.
Totally. 100%. Yeah. I think that's a great connection. I hadn't put that together at all, but you're just totally right there. Can I tell you something I did? Because this is I just like a little inside baseball for people. Sometimes when we're doing this kind of work, we make assumptions and we are just wrong about them. And so one thing I did is I was thinking about, after I rewatched the whole thing, I was thinking about the very end of the 10th episode and the ghost is a wish speech that Steve gives to Lee. And then I was thinking about, of course, how he gives that same speech to the woman in episode 1. And I decided in that moment when I thought about that when Steve gives this speech in episode 1, it's like a rehearsed line that he just tells everyone, and he doesn't believe this shit at all. It's bullshit. Um, and then I went back and watched it, and I was like, no, I'm 100% wrong. Like, if you go back and look at the episode 1 when he's talking about what a ghost is, now he is speaking more metaphorically there. I think at the end of it, he has realized stuff, and he is, while still speaking metaphorically, is also speaking much more literally. But the line that really got me is at the very end of when he says it in episode 1, and sometimes a ghost is just a wish. He has this forlorn look on his face that almost says to me something I don't think you and I ever talked about. I wish I could see my mom again. Like we talked about this, this need for him to believe that this was all just delusions and fake and all of these things. And I still think that's true, but I think part of this ghost hunting thing that Steve has now turned his career into is he is desperate to see an actual ghost, because it means maybe I get to see my mom again. And I don't think I ever fully like realized that until that moment.
Yeah. Maybe you can answer this more quickly than I can by rummaging through my memories, but does he even see Liv until that last shot of her standing in the doorway?
Yes. He sees her in the funeral, in eulogy. I think in Two Storms. He sees her at Nell's coffin, and then he sees her. That's that scene where she like approaches him. Remember, like the camera cuts away and she's now closer to him. He sees her
Yes.
there.
Okay.
And then he sees her shadow in when he's at the fertility clinic.
Okay.
He sees her.
Yeah.
But I don't know,
Yeah.
like there's an argument to be made, like which one of those is a ghost, is actually Liv's ghost, if any. You know, like that. I mean, that's one thing the show doesn't ever really truly answer for us, is this idea that it seems like most of the ghosts are just stuck in the house, except for Nell and Liv, who appear like you could make an argument that the bowler hat man ghost appears outside of the house, but at the end of the episode that there's revealed to be Olivia. So
Yeah.
we might be trying to like put rules and borders to something that doesn't have actual like rules to it, but it is interesting like how that works.
Yeah, I mean, I always thought it was interesting that the house seems to be haunting the two youngest children much more aggressively than any of the others. And I always, again, I never like to be, tactical realism with my ghost stories, but I'm like, is that just because those are the two that Liv wants the most, and so she's pushing, she's kind of reaching her ectoplasmic finger out into the world and using whatever resources that are bestowed upon her to reach out and touch them specifically? Or is it more just like, well, they were there when they were little, and so they were the most open to the house, and so it wormed inside them in a way that it didn't quite fully worm inside the other children?
I think it's a little of both.
Yeah. I mean, that feels right. And again, I don't like to be too overly literal with it, so I think we could just kind of go with it.
I did want to talk about something. So we're talking about we kind of moved on from it, but to circle back around to it, the idea of a home, and like one of like the I don't know. Sometimes we're so. I'm trying to think of the way to describe this. Like, it's just this general idea of the like a house is not a home. A home, like, what is your home versus what is your house? Like, a house is just bricks and walls. Like, a home is the people you surround yourself with. This very like, I mean, it's very explored concept and theme, and very simple to understand theme that I think has been explored in storytelling forever. I don't think that diminishes the existence of it here, because I think this is part of the idea. There's the general, like you were talking about the forever house and the fact that the kids are they're each other is their actual home. There is actually one thing I wanted to talk to you related to that, which is Steve's reading from Shirley Jackson's Haunting of Hill House that appears in the final episode, because the story takes a line from the book that we read and we studied closely, but I didn't really think much about at the time. The line I'm talking about is "I am home," she thought, and stopped and wondered at the thought. "I am home. I am home, she thought, now to climb. And that's like, we read the book. I don't think either of us pulled that out to like talk about or focus on in any way whatsoever, but it spoke to Mike Flanagan in a very specific kind of way, and he uses it multiple times in the finale. And the last one is the one I love the most, because he has Steve say that again one more time as Steve is walking up to his old house with Lee.
Home. I am home, I thought, and stopped in wonder at the thought. I am home. I am home. Now to climb.
She says it all again. Then the camera does a cut, and he doesn't say the I am home or now to climb part until we cut to the beginning of the scene, him trying to talk to Lee. And I bring this up just to talk about the idea of house versus home, but also I just like generally how cool adaptation is sometimes, because every single person that reads something has a unique viewpoint or takeaway from it. Like, that's one of the joys of doing this whole project with you over the years, is just like, you can read a sentence that I read and it jumps out to you in a way that it doesn't jump out to me. And what I love is the way that sentence jumped out to Mike Flanagan. And beyond that, the idea of that final beat of that sentence is now to climb, which in the context of the book, Nell was at the foot of the spiral staircase in the library. It's just literal, right? I am home, now to climb, and she's going to climb up the staircase. Mike Flanagan reads that. It speaks to him. And the phrase now to climb in context of that scene in the show is, I am home, now I got to do the work. Now I've got to start climbing the mountain of forgiveness, of repair, of moving on, the hard work of getting better. And like, isn't that so cool? Like, it's like it didn't speak to me that way whatsoever, and it's not the way the book intended it. Even if the book is intending it in a metaphorical way and not just her literally climbing a staircase, but that's Flanagan felt something in that line and took it and made it mean something else. Some other beautiful thing in the show. And I think like that's why adaptation is so cool. That's why I like it so much.
Yeah, man, I love all that so much. That's great. I appreciate the way that they approached, the concept of adaptation, just overall, where they let these ideas and phrases sort of echo around and take on different meanings, and in many cases more interesting and beautiful meanings, like that one. Makes me really interested to see what Mike Flanagan chooses to do with some other things that he might adapt in the future.
I mean, it's why like I know there was reaction when Carrie was announced. It was like, do we really need another Carrie adaptation? Haven't we done so much Carrie? And I'm just sitting here like gleefully like, fuck yeah, man, this is going to be awesome. Like, it's going to be this guy's take on this material. It's going to be different, even if like the beats of it are the same. And I feel like the core broad beats of Carrie you probably have to keep intact. That doesn't mean there's not plenty of room for interpretation and exploration in the middle of all of it. And then I know you meant the Dark Tower. I was just avoiding saying it myself.
I know, because we don't want to.
Yeah.
So it's fun. Just as a brief tangent about Carrie, like, we watched and discussed both of the existing film adaptations of Carrie, and I feel like, despite the fact that those were both quite faithful adaptations in many ways, they still like leave you feeling actually distinctly different about the meaning of the climactic finale and ending of that story, which is just interesting to me, because it's like they're not like taking some wild take on the idea of Carrie. There are subtle differences in characterization and execution that cause you to feel very different, and that's so you can do a lot with adaptation is the thing.
Absolutely. I understand the sentiment of being tired with something, but I myself am excited, especially when it's a creator that has just been known to really nail this kind of thing. As I think even now, even as early into this project as you are, I think we're on episode like 27 of 100. I think we already can very clearly see he understands adaptation pretty well.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So yeah, it's great. What else, Matt? What else do you want to talk about? I'm looking at your list here.
I had a few bullet points. I mean, this one I just wanted to mention it. I don't even know that I have anything prepared to say, because in my notes I just wrote religion ? And really, I guess it's like you've got the element where the Dudleys are religious, prayerful people, and Liv in contrast is sort of a bohemian universalist, and the show doesn't like take a stand on religion per se, as far as I can tell. And the idea that there's an afterlife never at any point feels Christian. Like there's nothing about this take on death that to me feels like, oh, so they're gonna go to the Catholic heaven after this, or it just feels like the house has its own rules. It's the house. The house is supernatural or perhaps preternatural, and and that's all there is. That's all we know. We don't know anything else about anything. We don't even know if there's a heaven, right? Just wanted to see if you had any further thoughts about religion, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's interesting. Like Flanagan himself is an atheist. I think we've talked about that. Raised in I believe Catholic, if not Catholic, some sort of Christian fundamentalist church. So I don't think he has like warm and fuzzy feelings towards Christianity. And the ways in which it has popped up so far in his work, like we have in Absentia, one of the main characters has converted to Christianity. We see it pop up a little bit in Ouija, with the Henry Thomas character as a priest, but that is still not like it's not in direct focus. And I think even here with the Dudleys, like yes, there are several beats over the course of the show that reinforce the Dudleys' Christianity, but it is never like center frame.
You know the Gospels, young man?
And yeah, we mentioned some of the complaints around the Dudleys and their Christianity and the choices they make and how those things don't seem to mesh. We mentioned that on the episode last week, and how we didn't personally have a problem with any of that. But I just think like what I think here is, if I can make assumptions to things that I don't actually know, Flanagan is in his mind like working up to his big declarative statement on how he feels about religion and Christianity. And so he's just like kind of playing with it in pieces, as kind of like a pregame or a preseason, a scrimmage, for the main event that is Midnight Mass, right? Like, so like I just ultimately, like any conversation we have about Flanagan, his works, and how his works talk about Christianity just has to wait until we talk about Midnight Mass, I think.
I see. I kind of love this because, like, yeah, there's you take any writer, any writer really, and there's certain elements they just can't help themselves from putting into the work because it's something they think about all the time. Yeah. So it just ends up there. So yeah, I think that makes sense. Yeah, I like that.
And I mean, not to spoil Midnight Mass for anyone that hasn't seen it, I love how he explores the topic with both kind of a righteous anger at the worst aspects of religion, but also a kind of empathetic understanding of why people find strength in it still. I don't know. This is teeing up a conversation that is going to happen next year sometime. So we can hold there, but I think it's a nuanced, fascinating take, and I can't really wait to explore it with you. But here, I don't know if there's much like ultimately, are we saying anything with religion with the Dudleys? And I think like broadly what we can say is like I think the show says the Dudleys are wrong, that the God the Dudleys believe in probably doesn't exist. but I also think the show says that Liv's kind of staunch rejection of that idea is probably also wrong.
Yeah.
Just that there's like, it goes back to the Shakespeare line, that we don't understand this world and
Mhm.
all the nooks and crannies and pieces of it.
I will make one assertion about what this maybe so broad as to say this is a Flanagan thesis, because we talked in absentia about the idea that, like, not only has the character converted, but they pray. They actually pray, and Mrs. Dudley, I think multiple times, says, I'm going to pray for you, or I pray. She prays. She's not just religious, but she prays, and by that let's say what we mean. She asks God for intercession and for protection,
Mhm.
and in every case, doesn't do anything.
Yes.
None of the people that Mrs. Dudley prays for are alive anymore, and none of the people that the character in absentia prayed for are alive anymore.
Yeah.
And prayer doesn't work, and this seems to be kind of a consistent thing, and that's not necessarily like, I think, you know this next bit feels a bit more like putting words in the author's mouth, but it's like, yeah, you have to get yourself out of the situation. You have to.
Sure.
No supernatural force is going to intercede because you asked nicely. You stuck your hand in the bear trap, and it has closed on your hand, and you have to get your hand out of the bear trap. That's it.
Yeah.
There's nobody. Nothing is coming to save you, and I think that's his. I think that's his attitude. And if we kind of, again, talk about the supernatural as a elevated genre way of talking about the real, it's just like, yeah, if you screw up your life, or if you make a mistake, or just if there is a situation that you're in that you need to get out of, you need to get out of it. You can't expect
Yeah.
something to come along and save you, and expecting something to protect you from your own mistakes is gonna lead to tragedy.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't want to get in a whole conversation about prayer and what prayer can and should be, yada yada yada. But I do think this is a swipe at the idea of like thoughts and prayers,
Mhm.
and just this general idea of like, that is, I'm gonna pray for you. Cool. What else?
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. But I also do think like it is. I think people will be lying if they said Christians don't like constantly deal with the fact that despite their prayers and pleads and asks of the God that they believe in, that things still happen that are terrible, right? I
Yeah.
mean, like not to bring up current events too much, but like a horrible thing happened in Texas, my home state, this past weekend. Like a river flooded, many people died. A girls' camp of young girls was completely destroyed, and many young girls, a Christian camp, by the way,
Mhm.
many young girls are dead because of it. And it's like there are Christians all around the world right now going like, how God, how could you do this?
Mhm.
How could you let this, or like, or praying to understand. And it's just this complicated thing where, like, I don't know, it's really complex. It's really complex. And
Yeah.
I think you're absolutely right that this is something that I think in this story in particular is just like taking aim at the idea of just prayer as a solution to your problem. But again, I think in Midnight Mass, that's going to get a little more complicated.
Yeah. I appreciate you saying all that. I mean, because I definitely didn't want to. I probably sounded even more cynical than I am, when really what I was trying to do was like express what I was kind of reading into the material.
Yeah, no, you're good. I
Yeah.
didn't. Yeah.
Yeah. Because like I think prayer is an understandable reaction to try to get some kind of handle on the desperate senselessness of the world sometimes.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah,
And-
whether or not you believe in God, I think you can understand a person sitting down and trying to focus their thoughts, whether it's towards a specific thing that you believe in or just in general at like, how do I, like, you can say the words, help me understand what's going on without
Mhm.
having to mean God help me understand. Like, it can just literally be just like, I'm thinking about you, or I'm worried about you, and expressing that, or just like,
Mhm.
help me understand, help it, like talking to yourself, like get a grip on what the fuck is going on and how you personally can work through the very complicated emotions you're having with it. Yeah, it's just
Yeah.
God, all this stuff's so freaking complicated.
Yeah.
And again,
Yeah.
Midnight Mass.
Yeah,
It's-
right. I definitely feel like this is a conversation that we are preparing for ourselves to have later more than we are having right now. But
yeah,
there were
which is
notes of
just
it
what
here.
I think Flanagan is doing as well. So,
Yeah,
so
yeah,
it's perfect. Yeah, yeah. Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to get real world sad.
yeah,
Just has, of course, been on my mind pretty constantly since Friday.
yeah. Me too. It's awful.
All right, let's go to happier thoughts. um, what else? What else did you want to highlight? I got some stuff I can go to, but
Yeah. You take the mic for a second. I think those are most of my bullet points.
I wanted to ask you a question about the horror of the story.
Okay.
Was this a scary story? Was the Haunting of Hill House scary to you ultimately? Because I know this is the one that you were like, you don't do well with scary stuff. This is one you were scared of going
Yeah.
into it, right?
Yeah. I mean, people had told me like, "Oh, you're gonna have a hard time with that one," and I think it wasn't nearly as bad as I was afraid of it being, because it almost always lets you know that something spooky is going to happen, and so you can kind of steel yourself for it. And it's not like an unrelenting spook fest. Like we okay, it's nighttime in Hill House. I'm physically preparing myself. It's n- it's not nighttime in Hill House, or we're not in Hill House, probably okay. And then there's some gray areas, and there's a couple of kind of out of the blue jump scares, like Nell at the Coke machine, and
Sure.
the two sisters in the car together. But the fact that I can sort of like enumerate them like that indicates how few there were.
Hmm.
Um, and it's just, yeah, like, and I think I also mentioned over the course of the show a few times where I got like my hackles stood up.
Yeah.
But that is a very different feeling. Uh, that's more fun even than like the persistent feeling like you're about to be jump scared. I think I'm just learning more about myself, that it's not that I don't like scary movies. It's that I don't like the tension that accompanies having to be ready for a jump scare at any moment.
Yeah.
And the show just kind of taught me like, you're not gonna. It's not really this kind of show. So
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I agree with all of that. I think, it's weird. Like, it's the thing your brain does to you sometimes. That like, my memory of this show is being mortified of it. Um,
mm,
when I mean, there definitely are and were moments that still kind of, I get that familiar discomfort of, oh, I'm scared right now. But that is not the overarching memory I'm going to have of this experience at all anymore.
mhm,
And I mean, I just want to be clear here. Like, there's a lot of horror fans out there. These are very, very, very good people, but they base the goodness or badness of a scary story or scary movie on how scared they got while watching it, right? A lot of people like, what'd you think of blah blah horror movie? Oh, it wasn't even that scary, as if like that's a measuring stick of how good it was. And I don't ultimately, like, I think Flanagan says this in his commentary that, like, ultimately, like, this isn't even a horror story. It's a drama with horror elements in it. And so it has some spookies for sure. There's some uncomfortable moments. There's a few jump scares. Um, but that's not the level this thing operates on. It doesn't
yeah,
want to constantly, constantly, constantly be scaring you. It wants to kind of mortify you in and make you very sad and then ultimately happy, I think. But it is not playing a game of let's see how freaked out we can make these people.
Yeah. I think just sort of by construction, it can't be that kind of scary because like that the ghosts don't like get any of the kids.
Yeah.
Kids are all alive as adults, and that's one of the operative principles of scary movies is like the thing could get you, could get anybody. Um
Yeah.
and furthermore, the idea that whatever the thing is like hunting you, and it's like, no, the ghosts aren't really hunting them. The ghosts are just kind of scaring them and then leaving.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
um,
So
I don't know.
with that in mind, what's your favorite ghost? What's your favorite Hill House ghost?
I mean, I kind of easy answer is the Hat and Cane Man, for me,
Yeah.
and I think it's just the sheer unnerving creativity of the design. The idea that he's like incredibly tall, and the tapping of the cane and the feet being off the ground, and all of
Yeah.
these details just creating this like I a second ago when you were talking and you were asking me like what scared me, I literally like gave myself chills again just picturing the door opening and the Hat and Cane Man coming, seeing his feet come into the room. I was picturing that, and my hair stood up again just thinking about it. So that's where my mind went immediately.
Yeah, I think for me as well. He's my favorite, and just it's like a particular design that is very effective at creeping me specifically out, but also I think just is the most effective like ongoing scare in the show is just him bumbling around the house. This is something I learned on the commentary that I watched is that effect is just they put the guy on a dolly and we're just pushing him around. And I think one thing Flanagan said that's worth sharing is like, this is kind of the weirdness of making horror movies is that you do a thing like this and on the day on the set, it looks ridiculous. And you just have to trust that it's going to be sufficiently spooky when it's all cut together and done. He also mentioned this when all the arms grab Theo laying in bed.
Uh-huh.
Like that's a thing that like on the set that looked absurd because it's just they like just cut holes in the mattress and we're just a bunch of people just reaching through the mattress to grab her. And it's just like when you're standing there looking at the whole thing, it looks ridiculous. It just doesn't look scary at all. But just you have to trust the process and that you cut it together, you light it properly, and you edit it properly, and suddenly it becomes terrifying.
Yeah, that I mean that's kind of fun to hear because one assumes that must happen all the time with horror stuff because like you've got you put a guy in a really bad looking green alien costume and you tell him like, all right, I want you to walk by this alley and we're going to shoot you with this shaky cam, and then Joaquin Phoenix is going to react in a really shocked way, and it's going to be terrifying for millions of people. And it's like on the day of, I'm sure that does not look terrifying. I'm sure that looks really stupid, actually.
Matt's Hill House is that one scene in Signs.
Yeah. Well, everyone immediately knew what I was talking about. So.
Yeah, of course they did. It traumatized a generation. So who's okay? This is a fun question I'm gonna ask. So I tried to basically we were supposed to do like a mailbag on this episode. That's normally what we do when we finish these overview episodes. But I forgot and we didn't ask for a mailbag on the episode 2 episodes ago. So we can't do that. So I tried to in my mind jot down some more fun mailbaggy questions for you so we could pretend like we're doing a mailbag.
Thank you.
So I want to ask Matt, who is the MVP of this show? And you can't say Mike Flanagan because that's cheating.
So
Siri heard me say that and wanted to offer an answer. Who's the MVP of The Haunting of Hill House that is not Mike Flanagan?
It's funny. I think I know who you would answer, but I'm gonna partly answer. Well, okay. I've got like 3 names that are jostling for priority. So should I? You're gonna make me pick one, or can I?
You can. There's no rules here, man.
There's
Do
no
what you
rules.
want.
I mean, I thought Kate Siegel as Theo, often like stole the scene, and her episode was one of our favorite episodes. my recollection is that even after we watched that episode, we were blown away by it. We were like, "This is one of my favorite episodes." And then I think looking back, it's still one of my favorite episodes. The
Mhm.
the Theo episode,
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and just kind of like she's just persistently sort of a highlight, and I really really enjoy her interpretation of this character, and um, I don't know. I thought that was a fun part of the show. Just like she was a fun part of the show. She was a part of the show that I sort of like looked forward to, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Um, I thought that, sorry, Carla Gugino as Liv. The show really depends on her a lot because she's the antagonist. She is the uh, core character in many ways in terms of things depending on her, and
Yeah.
a lot of the most dramatic scenes of the whole show are really carried by her.
Mhm.
Or and like that is the show, it her slow deterioration, I think, is something that I think we did talk about this at the time, but kind of stepping back from the show and talking about it from episode to episode, it's one of the most, I think it may just actually be the best screen depiction of a character starting basically okay and kind of deteriorating in a believable way without having that moment where it's like, oh, they're just crazy now. It's like,
Yeah.
no, it was a believable deterioration, and there was no one point where they just snapped. It's just, oh, now they're gone,
Mhm.
and you don't even know when it was they lost their handle on reality, and that's even scarier. I think that's even scarier to us because it makes us think like, oh, when I finally lose it, it's not going to be because of one event. It's going to be that I look behind me and I realize at some point in the past I lost the plot. That's scary to me anyway. I'll speak for myself. So
Mhm.
she was great. And I mean we've talked about how great she is a lot on this podcast in general, but I thought she was like another level of great. Even above all of what we said in Gerald's Game.
Yeah.
Um, and then I guess my final uh, uh, plaudits would. So I was gonna say, um, I was actually gonna say Timothy Hutton, but it's like, well, I kind of want to say like Timothy Hutton and Henry Thomas playing this character, which is a weird thing to do, but it's like, yeah, they just seamlessly blend into each other for me in a way where I just love Hugh Crane. I think Hugh Crane is a great character, uh,
Yeah.
and that depends on both of them. So
No, I think that's a great answer. I agree with all of those. Um, I feel like it's a cop out to say the director of photography, Michael Fimignari. I'm probably saying his name wrong. I need to learn that, but he DP'd every single one of these episodes along with Mike Flanagan. So that's like cheating because I said you can't say the director, so I said the guy the director's working most closely with. I mean, joking aside though, like I think Netflix in the time since this show has kind of gotten raked across the coals a lot for the look and feel of their original programming, that they, for a lot of these shows, they have a very similar look, very similar color palette. They try to make their shows look very samey, and frankly boring.
mhm.
And I think one element of the show outside of Two Storms, which we already called one of the most technically impressive episodes of television ever, like outside of that, the look and feel of the show is very well realized, and it's dark, um without being too dark, but it's light when it needs to be. I think the lighting is spectacular. I think the directing and just how the camera moves and what the camera captures, and I think it's just very very well done. And it's different from like what you would quote unquote prestige TV. And it very much doesn't feel like TV, like how you shoot TV. I was
Yeah.
watching my wife's watching this like show called The Royals or something. I've never seen it. I'm sure it's great, but it's very much TV, and I was watching it and I was just like, I'm not paying attention to the plot because I don't care, but I was just like, when your mode goes into, I'm just going to pay attention to the directing and blocking of the scene. And it's just like, you realize like very quickly 3 seasons in that every scene is constructed the exact same way. It's like, it's, wide shot to establish, then 2 shot over the shoulder, cut back and forth, like to the point where you can almost, I am not an expert of this, but you could almost be like, they're going to cut now, and you can pretty much nail it every single time. That is not this show. And sure, a lot of that is Mr. Flanagan, but I think he works very well with his director of photography.
Yeah, that's one of the things I wanted to mention at some point again, is like the way that he treats darkness and shoots darkness in a show that really has a lot of darkness. A lot of these scenes are in Hill House at night. And it's like a pet peeve of mine that the camera never captures darkness correctly in films, and that's just never been an issue with anything that Mike Flanagan and this DP have done.
Remember when they lit the entire scene in Two Storms with flashlights the characters were carrying?
Ridiculous.
It's fucking nuts, man. Not only is it nuts just from a like figuring out a way that works, that you can actually see what's going on, but like for a director of photography and a lighting crew to relinquish control of lighting in that way to actors, I think just must have been like, they have to nail this or the shot's not going to work. Man, that's a crew and cast working together in the best sense of the phrase.
Yeah, that's fantastic.
Yeah. The other thing I wanted to point out here is that like, this is, everything we had done up until this show was written, directed, and edited by Mike Flanagan. Now he directed every single episode of the show. He wrote quite a few of them. I believe he wrote 4. I think he's listed as a writing credit on 4 of the 10. And obviously there was a writer's room that he was a part of, but this show is really the first time that we've seen Flanagan outside of the triple threat. He edited the first episode, he edited the pilot, and then did not edit an episode after that. I have no information on this, but I like to think it's like he decided early on that he was going to direct and edit every single episode like he normally did. And then one episode in, he was like, nope, I don't have time for this. Yeah. We need to bring some other editors in here. I do not have time to shoot episode 2 and episode 3 and at 4 while trying to edit the past ones at the same time.
Yeah, I figured we would talk about this for a second because he directed movies until this point, and probably had his groove of what directing and writing and editing a movie looks like, and then glides on into a 10-episode TV show. And I don't think I'm putting words in his mouth because I read that Tumblr post that you sent me. I think it was a big learning experience. I mean, he describes it as being incredibly taxing physically and mentally. And
yeah,
I will say, it kind of surprised me to read that because I read it after I'd finished the show, and I was like, well, that didn't come through. The show is incredibly polished and sure-handed all the way through. Yeah. So he is much like Liv Crane falling apart as the show goes on, but the quality of the show is very, very steady. Didn't detect that at all. But that being said, like I guess he's going to learn from this experience, and when he does his next TV show, he's probably adjusted his expectations a bit as we go forward into his later career and his other TV shows.
Yeah, well, he definitely doesn't direct all the episodes of Bly Manor. He definitely doesn't direct all the episodes of Midnight Club or House of Usher. The only exception to this is Midnight Mass, which he does direct every single episode of, but that is a shorter number of episodes. I believe that's only 7 episodes, and also that's something very personal to him, to the point where like we joked about a few episodes ago where in the commentary he says he's learned from his mistake and never going to do that again, and of course he did it again. And I don't know if they've released how many episodes there even are of the Carrie show that's being filmed right now. I believe the original press release when it was announced that Flanagan's helming this was 8 episodes. I'm fairly certain he's not directing every single episode of that either. So I think Midnight Mass is kind of the exception that makes the rule here. But yeah, I mean, just like everything you read and he talks about, like it makes me feel a little bit weird to be like, oh, this thing was awesome, I love the show, it's one of my favorite shows of all time, and be like, yeah, but it was like incredibly emotionally and physically destructive to the people who made it.
It's like you're watching the performance at the end of Whiplash and you're like, that was the best drum performance ever. I want to see him do that every night.
Yeah, whatever you need to do that, please do it.
Yeah.
Don't stop ever. Yeah. It's a little weird, but no, I agree with you. Like, I think it is kind of remarkable that everyone on that crew was working as hard as they could, and it was very, very difficult, lengthy shoot, and what they turned out was incredible. I also just want to once again shout out on my MVP list, Victoria Pedretti again, Nell Crane. I think especially since this was her first gig. Her first professional gig in acting was this show, and so much of it, you said a lot of it hangs on Liv, and you're so right, but so much of it hangs on Nell as well.
Yeah.
And she just does a remarkable job. Like, it's just like, it's very unsurprising to just see that this woman has, since this moment, had like just a string of successes, that she's just doing very well in the world of acting nowadays. Like, it's just not surprising at all. Like, it's one of those opportunities where if you watch the show when it first came out, you kind of got a little bit of what made Flanagan go, yes, we need this person. Like, you know, this very confident, like, oh, this person's going to be a star actually. And yeah, she's doing very well. I for a hot minute thought about trying to get her on the show. I was like, I'm just gonna like cold DM her, and I pulled up her Instagram and saw 2.5 million followers, and I said, oh, not gonna make it through that noise. So much for that, but it would be great to talk to her. But she's incredible on the show.
For sure. Yeah, I almost wanted to, refuse to pick a favorite actor, because like, yeah, it's sort of an ensemble, and everyone more than pulls their weight. Even the character, it's funny. Like, we almost started this episode talking about how much we dislike Shirley, and it's like, well, like that works because of how good that performance is. Like, she's doing exactly the right thing to hit exactly the right point of how you're supposed to feel about this character.
Yeah, definitely. Everyone is doing great here. Like, that's the thing that, like, Auteur theory, yada yada yada. Like, this is a show named after Mike Flanagan. We are focusing on him and his accomplishments and achievements and the things that he creates. But like, for something to be truly great, I am entirely convinced of this. For something to be truly great, everyone has to be great. Like, there is no quarterback in this in the creation of movies or television or any kind of art that's just like, oh, that was all this guy, and he held it all up and we really didn't have to do anything. It's like, no, if it's going to be something that's that Whiplash level, drum solo level of great, everyone has to be turning in the best. And I just think this is one of those rare moments in entertainment where that happened. Like, we haven't mentioned the kids this episode, but these were once again kid performances that a lot of expectation was put on children to perform here. And I don't have a complaint about any single one of them. I thought they were all remarkable.
A huge risk, and there's not even like a moment where you're like, it could have been better. It was it was incredible. It was almost unbelievable. Yeah.
It was great. It was all great. Everyone was great. Like, across the board, even the smaller characters, like Samantha Sloyan doesn't get much in the show, but when she needs to bring it, she brings it.
Yeah.
Same with the Dudleys. Annabeth Gish and Robert Longstreet, they both freaking bring it.
Yeah. I don't remember who's playing Joey, but like, that was her sort of turn when Luke gets the money still kind of gives me chills. Like, just her realizing that she's going to be able to get some more heroin out of this guy. It was very upsetting. I love it.
Yeah. You know what I actually liked? I liked that final shot of the show didn't like force Joey into it. Like
Mhm.
we see Steve and Lee, and Lee's pregnant. We see Kevin and Shirley are there together, assuming they've started the process of repairing their marriage. Um, and we see Theo's got Trish there with her,
Mhm.
and I, but Luke is just there with his family, and I don't know. Like I think Joey's probably just dead. I mean,
Yeah.
maybe it feels terrible to say that, but like she probably just overdosed, or she's just in a gutter somewhere, or just maybe. Look, let's be a little more optimistic. Maybe she's back in rehab and working on it.
Yeah.
But like that would almost be too pat to also bring her back into it and be like, and everything worked out for everyone, and Luke got sober for 2 years, and also Joey's back and she's sober again too. And it's like, no. Sometimes that's not like part of this is, as you said at the very beginning of the episode, some things you cannot fix. And he tried to, he felt that Joey helped fix him. And so he had a responsibility to try to help fix her.
Mhm.
And part of his growth is realizing that sometimes you can't do that.
Yeah.
Those people have to figure out how to fix how to fix themselves a little bit too.
Yeah. Well said. And I think that if you keep reaching your hand out to somebody and they keep slapping it away, at some point you've got to stop reaching your hand out.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh man. What a show.
What a
What a
show.
show. It's been, I mean, this is 11 weeks. This is the longest we've ever spent talking about a television show. Like I said, 22 hours to talk about a roughly 10-hour show. I think that's on pace for us, but
Yeah.
just frankly, Matt, like everything I wanted this to be, I think we got here. Like just not only just enjoyment of the content, but just like the conversation and what we both pulled out of it. It's just been really great. It's just
Yeah.
been an absolute pleasure to do this.
Had a blast talking about the show with you, and glad we are moving on to the next thing.
Yeah,
And we're gonna keep the train rolling.
that's a good segue to what our next thing is, because we are jumping back with Sir Stephen King. He's not a knight, but shouldn't he be though?
He's
I know we don't knight people in this country, but like if we were going to knight someone,
yeah.
right?
Yeah. Well, he doesn't like being called Cy, so we got to call him Sir.
Yeah. Doesn't like being called Stephen either.
Oh, really?
Steve.
Oh,
I
Steve.
just will never feel normal calling him Steve. I feel like Steve is reserved for people that have met and talked to the man.
Yes, I think you're
Just
right.
doesn't feel right for me. But yeah, so we are jumping into Dr. Sleep, which is the next film that Mike Flanagan directs. We are going to be covering the book. If you joined us during The Haunting of Hill House and have never been with us as we cover books, we do this a little bit differently than the show, although I guess not as differently than we did Haunting of Hill House. We divide the book into sections, and we're going to spend, I believe, 7 episodes going through Stephen King's Dr. Sleep. The first episode coming out next week will be a pretty big one. It's going to be about 123 pages. We usually try to do around 70 pages, but I think we kind of looked at the schedule and we looked at this idea that Flanagan is the main event here, that we want to read the stories because they will help us better understand the adaptations, but the main event is still the movie. And so we took what was, I think, 10 episodes and we shortened it a little bit to only 7 episodes. So we're going to be moving through the book slightly faster than we did in the Kingslingers days, if you were coming from that, but I think there's still plenty to talk about for sure.
Yeah.
And as a reminder, this is a book that I have read and Matt has not.
Yeah. So we're just returning to form.
Yeah. Although you have seen Flanagan's film before, so you are broadly aware of what the story is.
I am broadly spoiled, but not specifically spoiled. So
I think this is really interesting, and we'll get into this a little bit more next week, Matt, because this is a book that I did not pick for Kingslingers, because I don't love it.
Mhm.
I don't. I have very mixed feelings about this book, and I'm very curious to see if I still feel that way by the end of this thing. I'm going into this with an opinion that is Flanagan's adaptation is superior to this book in just about every way. especially the director's cut version. So
Hmm.
I'm interested to see how that changes, or if it changes.
I feel like we almost always end up liking things more after we've studied them, but
Yeah. Yeah.
we'll see.
Yeah. Yeah. All right, we're about to move on to discussion questions, but that is what's going to happen next week, and for the next couple of months, we will be talking about Doctor Sleep. First episode next week will be on the opening section titled "Prefatory Matters" through chapter 3 of the novel. So if you want to follow along at home, read those chapters, and also just a reminder that our show schedule is linked to every episode of this show. So if you're ever unsure about what chapters we're reading, where you should stop, you can just go right into the show schedule through our show notes. Just click that, and it'll take you to a nice, pretty Google form that will have all the information you need.
Awesome.
All right, Matt, let's talk discussion questions. So what was it? So it was 2 weeks ago. It was on episode 9, Screaming Mimi. So this was the dive into Liv and what happened to Liv over her course at the time, her time at Hill House. So
That's right.
What was the question again?
The question was, what's your favorite instance of a character thinking they're dreaming when they are not?
Yes.
Yes. So Pear Jane references Pet Cemetery. One of my favorite "was it a dream or not" tropes is the dirty feet/shoes trope. The character wakes up in bed and then gasp. They realize their feet are filthy from their nighttime wanderings. At the very least, they were sleepwalking, or were they? So, of course, I'm shouting out dear doomed Lewis Creed of Pet Cemetery, whose first day as a campus doctor involved a cyclist with a caved-in skull who becomes Lewis's personal Cassandra, warning him against traveling beyond the pet cemetery for the rest of the story. Does Lewis wake up with muddy pine needle strewn feet after his first encounter with Victor? Of course he does. Does Lewis heed Victor's warnings? Of course he does. Happily for us all, Lewis makes a series of excellent choices that do not result in any gruesome deaths, and everyone lives. Hallelujah and thank Gan.
This is actually great. Pet Cemetery. You've seen the movie, right?
Yeah.
You have. Yeah.
Yeah.
Have not read the book. I did not put you through that ordeal. But I'm talking about this now because it is a perfect link to what we were talking about with the Dudleys and Abigail. This idea of, is it wrong to do to make the choices they made as it comes to Abigail? Sure it is. Would I make the same choice? Probably. And I think that's a great parallel to Pet Cemetery, right? Where it's the wrong choice. It's the wrong choice. But how many of us would be able to resist that temptation of, once again, it's like, why would you want to see your son that way? Well, it's better than never seeing him again.
Yep, exactly.
Of course,
I like that
it isn't. It actually just isn't.
But I mean, I like this phrasing we have now, though. Like that's a very succinct way of putting it.
Yeah. All right, we have the Man in Black 19 who wants to talk to us about Inception. The end of Inception is my favorite. Are they still dreaming or not? I feel like Flanagan and Stephen King gave the chef's kiss gesture after watching Inception. Is Cobb still in a dream, or did the top stop spinning? I personally hope Inception gets to Zapruder film level of misunderstanding and disagreement.
Yeah.
It's been years. It's been years since Inception came out. Do you have an updated take on, was Cobb still dreaming or not?
It's funny. Me and some friends were just talking about this. So my feeling is that for a long time, I just thought, it's intentional ambiguity, and he's left us with an unsolvable paradox of not knowing, and that tension is the point. And then recently, I feel like there have been some good sort of internet theories that were like, no, you fools, he's just in a dream, and here's the evidence. And the evidence is it's not like definitive, but you read it and you kind of are nodding along, and you're like, yeah, maybe. I mean, the top doesn't fall over, and a few other pieces of evidence. So I don't know if I want to go so far as to say that I've changed my mind, but I feel like maybe the culture has changed its mind. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, the only thing I'll say is like, I know you can't return to the U.S. to see your children, but they do make planes that go to Europe. could we not just put the children on a plane? I mean, it's so dreamy in its conception,
Mhm.
that scene. Like, it's hard to argue against it. Like,
Mhm.
everything about that scene is screaming at you that this is a dream.
Yeah.
The kids look the same age as they were in his memories. Like, all the details that you're talking about. Like, and I mean, it feels very Nolan to
Mhm.
just like in the same way that Flanagan correctly chose to not frame the final shot of The Haunting of Hill House as they've been in the red room all along.
Mhm.
I think like that was the right move for Flanagan, and that's like the type of creator he is. It feels very Chris Nolan to me to just be like, well,
Yeah.
he got everything he wanted, but oops,
Yep.
it was a dream.
Yeah. I think if anything, it's like we don't want that to be true, so that's why we resist accepting it.
Sure, yeah.
All right, DJ Nedelko chooses The Wizard of Oz. I don't know. Sorry, I know it doesn't exactly answer the question perfectly. I guess my favorite would be The Wizard of Oz. Was it all just a dream after getting knocked out from the tornado, or did she actually partake in this magical adventure and learn more about herself along the way? I think having this tie into the Dark Tower series also adds to my enjoyment of the world that L. Frank Baum conjured up even more. I have a huge appreciation for stories that can be satisfying with either the dream scenario or the real life story.
Mm-hmm. Well, the question is, when she woke up in the bed surrounded by her family, were her feet dirty?
That's right.
Mud on her feet? Just check
right.
that. Just check that. I tried to get my son to watch The Wizard of Oz, and he got out of that one very quickly.
Mhm.
I think it scared him.
Oh, interesting. I feel like my kids would have just been like, "This is black and white. The dopamine rate is not sufficient. I can't pay attention."
We got to the color part,
Okay.
and then the witch kept showing up and being scary.
Okay.
But he was very curious about how the mean lady on the bicycle turned into the Wicked Witch and why that happened. And did the tornado turn her into the witch? I was like,
Interesting.
I mean, kinda.
Yeah.
Sure.
That's as good a theory as any.
We'll try again, I think, when he's older. We did just watch The Sound of Music with him last week, and that is a 3.5 hour epic movie, and he was into it. He's singing
Cool.
the songs still, so
Hmm.
I don't kids, I don't know, man. I don't know.
It's hard to predict sometimes.
Yeah. All right, we have Duran Longbeard, who says the Nightmare on Elm Street series. Ooh, good one. The best dream, not a dream story to me will always be Nightmare on Elm Street. Every movie in the franchise slaps, as the kids say. You get nearly every character starting off not believing in Freddy and thinking the weird stuff they are all collectively dreaming is total coincidence, and then slowly the dawning horror of what's happening becomes reality, as he not only slices and dices assorted teens, but does it with humor and style. I love horror and this unique take of not just a slasher movie, but a slasher you absolutely 100% cannot avoid really scratches an itch. Yeah, man, you got to go to sleep eventually. You can't run from him.
See what you did there, Duran Longbeard. Scratches an itch.
Yeah.
It's good. Good.
I will never forget. I don't even remember which Nightmare on Elm Street it is, but it's one where a girl gets trapped in a fly trap in her dream and turns into a fly, and it has scarred. I don't even know if she turns into a fly. If just my brain added that part. She just gets stuck in like fly paper, and then I think maybe he just squishes her. I don't know. Like, it's disturbing. I don't even remember which one that is.
It is funny. We've talked about this before, but like there are scenes I remember being scared of when I was a kid, and I have very, very vivid memory. And those scenes are not in those movies. I've just like, created a scene that was kind of like a particular scene. Yeah.
Our brains, they're powerful.
Yep. Finally, the Shard Bear 14 says The Princess Bride. I think Buttercup's nightmare and The Princess Bride is a very fake out dream sequence because, much like Fred Savage, we don't want it to be real either. The overwhelming dread and the old woman creeping toward the camera shouting, "Boo! Boo! Boo!" is a great button to the dream and a great segue into Buttercup back in the real world.
I'm so glad you did the voice.
Thank you.
Oh, that was incredible. Good job.
Thanks.
Oh, I'm crying. Ugh. All right, those are our 5, right?
Yeah, those are our 5, and then the remainders are Steve Living Room says, "What dreams may come." I'm not gonna say any more about that because that's a spoiler. Ben,
Also, is this the 3rd week in a row of What Dreams May Come?
I
Am I
think
going
so.
crazy?
No, it is. We love What Dreams May Come on Flanagan's Wake. Bent Westford picks Brazil. The bureaucratic nightmares blur dream and reality. Uh, Interesting. I thought we already. I'm confused.
Did DJ Janelko give 2 answers? Did he
Perhaps-
sneak in there?
Perhaps
Or did
DJ
you just get names wrong?
I might have gotten names wrong. So if this name is wrong, I apologize. Sometimes I can't trust my technology, but this says DJ Nadelko chooses Life of Pi, with some ambiguity about which version of events is real. Yeah, that's not. I agree that's not quite a dream thing, but there is that question of like what actually happened. I think that.
Yeah.
I think we'll count that one. Lady from the Mountain says the ending of the Wheel of Time and the overall ideal philosophy that reality is a dream and dying is waking up.
Spoilers! I'm definitely going to read those books one day.
Yeah, I don't think that's really spoiler. Speaking of Wheel of Time, Ishmael 75, or maybe this is just Ishmael. Maybe this is not a Wheel of Time reference.
You sure that's not Moby Dick?
Might be a Moby Dick reference, but I think I'm going to go with the much better book, Wheel of Time. They choose Total Recall, the ambiguity being whether Quaid is dreaming his Mars adventure or, is actually a secret agent. And I have always just chosen to believe that he is a secret agent.
I mean, that's the more fun interpretation.
It's the more fun interpretation. Thank you.
Yeah. So. Yeah, he is.
Yeah.
It's fun to play those games, though. It's fun to ponder and think about it. I tend to like that structure in shows sometimes.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. All right. That was it for the discussion questions, and that is it for our time with The Haunting of Hill House. We're not going to do a discussion question on the next episode because we're in this weird transition period from one topic to another. So no discussion question for episode 2 of of Dr. Sleep, I believe, but we'll get started up that again on episode 1 of Dr. Sleep next week, which once again will be through chapter 3 of Stephen King's novel. We hope you guys follow along with us there. We also did cover The Shining back on Kingslingers. If you need a refresher on The Shining before we get into its sequel, you can check that out. I believe that was the start of season 3 of our show. I don't remember. Just go and look. It's there. We covered The Shining pretty extensively. So if you want to remind yourself of what happens in that book, it's out there.
That's right. Remember, you can reach us via email at flanaganswakepod@gmail.com, over on x.com at flanaganswake19, and on the subreddit at reddit.com/r/doofmedia. No discussion question, but there's still plenty of discussions to partake in over there on the subreddit. People are always sharing pictures of merch and all kinds of fun stuff. So go check that out. And be sure you check us out on YouTube, because every episode of Flanagan's Wake is on YouTube.
Probably.
Yeah,
So people might have noticed that our episode from 2 weeks ago wasn't there on Thursday morning, and that's because we got copyright blocked before it even released. We are disputing that like we always do, hoping to win on fair use grounds. We think we probably will. It's available now, but if one thing we tried in the kind of mad scramble that morning of getting the video up somewhere is we uploaded it to Spotify, which also has a video component now. And that process was pretty pain-free. It worked quickly. We didn't have to deal with any copyright shenanigans. And episode 9 is on Spotify. So I think we're just going to do that from now on too. So it will be on YouTube. We encourage you guys to watch it on YouTube if it's available. But if you're a Spotify user and you want to still see video, the video podcasts will also be available on Spotify. It might be a little delayed there, just the way we've got our kind of push out to the different platforms. I have to wait until it's pushed to Spotify before I can go into the episode and then upload the video format of that. But it will be there going forward.
Yeah. If you enjoy Flanagan's Wake and you want to support us, and please check on over the Patreon at patreon.com/doofmedia. We've got a new episode of our bonus podcast covering the TV show From that should be out by the time you see this.
Yep.
And we're back on track now that I'm back from vacation. And of course, there's a huge backlog of our discussions of Stephen King adaptations. In fact, we have a discussion of Dr. Sleep on the Patreon. So
if you want to go listen to our episode discussing Dr. Sleep on the Patreon, so you can be really critical of us when we accidentally say the same things we said on that episode 2 years ago, go to patreon.com/doofmedia.
That's right.
Folks, you got to go to the merch store right now. doofmedia.myshopify.com. We have a whole section now put aside for The Haunting of Hill House, both Shirley Jackson's novel and Mike Flanagan's show. Lots of Hill House related merchandise. The newest thing we have on the shop, Matt, is a Cup of Stars design that also has "The Rest is Confetti" written on it. This design was done by our wonderful designer Eliza, who has been helping us with she made the Ghost Bear, and she made the Nellies in the Red Room design, and now this "The Rest is Confetti" with the Cup of Stars. It's a great design. You should go check it out. Trust me, y'all. You're gonna want this on a shirt, or I believe there's a mug as well. It's not like our typical mug. It's like a latte mug. It's like a fancy mug.
Ooh.
I want one real bad.
I need that.
Yeah. So please, doofmedia.myshopify.com. Check that out. Eliza's doing awesome work for us. So we hope you guys try out that merch and man, I love this. I'm sorry, I'm distracting myself by just looking at the design. Like I like this so much. Yeah. Once again, doofmedia.myshopify.com. Get some cool stuff. But if you can't afford to buy merch, and if you can't afford to support us on Patreon, there's other ways you can help us out. You can share the episodes. You got any friends that really like Dr. Sleep? Well, tell them we're going to be covering Dr. Sleep over the next 2 months, and they can jump on board. You can also leave us rating and reviews on Spotify, on Apple, on anywhere else. I think there's some other places. Those reviews are really, really important. They help us. They help with our discoverability and all of that good stuff. So please, if you can take the time to do that, that would be great. This week's Spotlight review comes from Caffeine4, who gives us 5 stars and says deep dives at their best. Deep dives are so rare. Love the energy and thoughtfulness of these two as they reflect on the works of Mike Flanagan. Nice balance of information, interpretation, and banter. Well, thank you. And occasionally we start an episode going on a 5-minute tangent about being in a bathtub when there's lightning outside.
Very rarely, though.
Thank you so much for taking the time to do that review. Caffeine. I also need some caffeine. Hey, Caffeine, get a cool new mug for your caffeine to put it in there. Thank you so much for the time. We appreciate you and all of you folks out there that have taken the time to sit down at a computer or phone and write a review and say some nice things. We appreciate them. We read them. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah. So this has been Mike Flanagan's The Haunting of Hill House. I can't believe it. It's over. But still plenty to do as we move on to Dr. Sleep. Until then, rest in peace, Mr. Flanagan. And Hill House.
Yes. In the Red Room.
And the Red Room. Although, the Red Room never really goes away because he named his whole production company after it.